Miss Pantry. So today I'm going to make a meal that brings back childhood memories for me. And I was just thinking the other day when I'm trying to compile some recipes, my favorites, and I started thinking about the favorite things that my mother-in-law or my mom or my grandmother made that I would always ask for when I'd go home or they'd come to visit. And I remember sitting in the kitchen just patiently waiting for this dish. As simple as it is and as old-fashioned, I'm sure this was stemming from the Depression era, but it's delicious and it's still one of my very favorites, and I haven't made it in a long time, and I've had a lot of thoughts running through my mind about my grandmother. So this is my grandmother's recipe, and she called this pot pie, but it's not at all a pot pie. It's more like a meat and dumpling or meat and homemade noodle thing. So that being said, she did it in chicken and beef. And beef was my favorite, but because we have so much venison, and I don't purchase a lot of beef unless it's, you know, all natural, no hormones, all that. I try to limit our intake, but we need to utilize the deer meat that we were blessed with this fall. So I'm going to do it with deer. I've never done that before, and I replace beef dishes all the time with venison. So we're going to have a venison pot pie my grandmother's way. Simple and easy, but so delicious and comforting. And we have had rain like no other the last couple of days, so it's really nice to stay in and make something really hearty and heartwarming and comforting. So that being said, I hope it keeps you along for the ride and it inspires you to maybe look back in your memories and see what recipes you forgot about and maybe try them on your family and keep that memory alive. So that's what we're going to do today. I'll leave some links in the description box below, and also some video responses down in the comment section, so you can go check out maybe something I'm hoping you'll watch. And then I'm also, the links in the description box are to my Facebook page and to my Wild Tree website. Wild Tree's an all-natural, all-organic food and spice company. They're a wonderful company, and they have just absolutely wonderful products. So, and I will be using their grapeseed oil to brown off the meat. So, hope you go check that out. And as always, guys, come on, let's go make something. Okay, guys, I have got my pot here is heating up. This is my, well, I call it my bean pot, but it's a nice cast iron. It's a perfect size for me to have dinner, and then I will take the rest to work tomorrow, and I'll share it with the girls. So it'll be delicious. Well, I'll probably only share it with one. I have one coworker that won't touch venison. If she knows it's in there, she won't touch it. So, which is odd to me because she's missing out on some good meals. So I've got my grapeseed oil, which is hard to see in the glare, but I'm using just a plain oil, and about 2 tablespoons you'll want down there. I don't want to, maybe even, yeah, I want a good amount on the bottom of the pan there, because we're going to be browning quite a bit of meat. And I do it exactly how my grandma did it, and I'm just mimicking her recipe. So if you say, oh, it's too crowded, well, that's the way she did it. So anyway, I'm going to put my meat down. And this is basically meat and pasta, so you don't need, you don't want a squinty dish. You want a lot of meat in there. We would have this with a wilted salad. She would make wilted salad. And so what I do is just sprinkle down some all-purpose flour over the meat. Probably 4 tablespoons, maybe 3. Some salt and pepper. And I love pepper, so I'll put extra when it comes out as well. Salt. So basically, it's getting breaded here in the pan instead of outside the pan, and you're just going to brown it off. It helps to thicken the broth. And I'm going to add beef stock because I don't have venison stock. You could add vegetable stock if you wanted. I'm going to keep it so when I taste this, it tastes like my grandmother's did. I want that memory back. So, that being said, I'm going to get this up to speed and I'll bring you right back. Okay, so now I'm ready to add my stock. And I've got 2 quarts of home canned beef stock. Sometimes you get a little sediment down at the bottom of your jars, and that's okay. It's all part of the deal. And this is a perfect amount. This will end up so good. Now, it's got a slow simmer all day. I'm going to put a couple bay leaves in there. And those will come out before I serve it up. Okay, some bay leaf, and pretty much leave it alone. All right, guys, let me see, get my old trusty spoon here. Try to get some of the bits off the bottom. They're starting to release. As this comes up to a boil, it will. I'm going to bring it to a boil, then I'm going to put it down on low and just let it simmer for the rest of the day. Okay, now the next step will be making the pasta, and I'm going to make it the way she made it and cut it the way she cut it, and it will be a childhood memory. This will thicken up too as it goes along because it's going to reduce down a little bit, and that flour that was on there will thicken as well as the flour that will be on the noodles for the pasta. Why she called it pot pie, I don't know, because it wasn't a pie. It was in a pot. That's about the only reason. But, all right, guys, I'll bring you back. So now it's time to make our pasta. And the pot pie part of the recipe, I don't know. And this is funny because she would tell me how to do something and say, well, you'll see when I explain this, but it calls for a cup, and you can double or triple this recipe, but it calls for a cup of all-purpose flour. Now, you could use self-rising flour and omit the baking powder, but I'm going to do it this way. So, a cup of flour. And you'll need to keep your flour out to flour your surface. I've wiped my granite down so it's nice and clean and sanitary. And whenever you're working with dough, you want to make sure that you do that. So now I've got to get the leveling agent. This is what makes these noodles so good. So a teaspoon of baking powder. And we're going to put our salt in. It calls for a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to really wing this. And we'll say that's a half a teaspoon. I'm still using the pink salt because I can. I want to use the natural grapeseed oil. I'm going to open one here. Doesn't have any added flavor infused into it, but I do want that. And that's a teaspoon, so that's not much either. We'll do a healthy teaspoon of that. And I've taken this recipe and added other things to it to spice it and all that. I really, you can go any way you want. You want 1 large egg, so it's an egg noodle recipe. Now, I also do remember this recipe, her doing salt, flour, and water. So I believe that was when, you know, back in the Depression, they didn't always have fresh eggs or have the, oh, and this is 2 tablespoons of milk, the means to do something a little healthier. So I'm doing the extravagant one. So while you're mixing your egg in, you're actually beating it. You're just incorporating everything in with a fork. And depending on the weather and the humidity in the air, you may or may not need to add liquid. But it has rained here all day. I think it finally stopped. We've got flood warnings for the river. Thankfully, well, I wish I was closer to the river actually, but we are not in a flood zone. Okay, so now it's just almost to the consistency of a pie dough, if you will, without the shortening. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to start working on this dough. And you want to make sure that you work with it. What I like to do is I like to get in here and kind of knead it and get it into a solid form. And like I said, if I need to add something to this, I will. But now if I was making this for a large batch of pasta, I would triple or quadruple this recipe. And but this is pretty much for a small pot of soup, so I don't want a ton of pasta. So you can see how it's kind of formed a ball. Now, because if I roll this out right now, all it's going to do is spring right back to its original shape and I won't get anywhere. So I'm going to cover this with saran wrap and let it rest for 20 minutes and I'll bring you back when I roll it out. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes and I've had this just sitting here resting and it's time to roll it out. I'm excited. Oh, it smells amazing. That venison is cooked all day and it's just made its own broth and stock and it's going to be divine. And it's going to remind me of my Grammy. So we're going to roll this out. And you want to get a little flour on your rolling pin. And I don't really worry so much about what shape it is. If I was doing pie dough or something, I might be more concerned. But for this, I'm not going to worry myself. And sometimes we'd have really thick pasta, and sometimes it would be thinner. But this was, if you think about it, back in the Depression era, this was a really cheap way to fill a belly. You know, you put a little bit of meat, make a beautiful stock, and make some pasta or biscuits or, you know, something that was going to fill the void. And you're going to love how these get puffy and light and delicious. So all I'm doing is trying to roll it out where it's kind of uniform. So I can, uniform thickness. I'm not worried about what shape it is. I can, if I worried about that, I'd probably make it in the shape of our state. See, I don't know if you can see. It's about an eighth of an inch thick. And then I take a pizza cutter and make my noodles. And I'm making them the way she served them to us. And I know sometimes she would just pick this up and tear it and throw it in. Sometimes she would cut them. Sometimes she would dry them for a couple of hours, but most times, and this is the funny thing, in her recipe instructions, you are to dry this for 2 hours. But I think I only remember one time her doing that, and that was because dinner was going to be delayed. So, that being said, you can do it either way. And so we always had it in pretty much kind of a square shape for the most part of it. And even just 1 cup of flour makes a lot. You could swap out the flour for whole wheat. I'm sure you could use rice flour, anything you wanted. So let me get this. I'm just going to transfer these really quick onto a clean paper towel, take them over and start dropping. I've got to pull my spices out. While I was gone, well, after I turned the camera off, I did add 3 sprigs of fresh thyme, which if we had it, she would go ahead and add that. And so I did add that to the mix. And so I'm going to pull that out. And then we're going to drop these down. And they're going to be delicious. So I'll take you over there and let you see what's going on. Probably going to clean this up. So we'll have a little drying time. Not 2 hours, though. Okay, so we are going to take this lid off. And it's too hot to handle. Yum. Go ahead and give this a stir. This has been simmering all day, and look at that beautiful, beautiful broth. So now I'm going to fish out my herbs. All the leaves have fallen off the thyme sprigs, which is exactly what you want. I'm going to grab a fork, that'll make it easier. And a napkin. And really and truly, this meal is, you know, kind of what you have on hand and what's available to you. So you can see those thyme sprigs have lost all their leaves off the stem and lend all their flavor. Should be a couple more bay leaves, yeah. Get that bay leaf out. And now one more bay leaf here. There we go. I see another stem. And I believe there's one more stem in here, but maybe not. Maybe only, oh, there it is. Thought I put 3. There we go. So taking that out, it's already done its job. And this is just simmered on low, just like it is right now. Just this slow little bloop, you know, every now and then you see something move in there. And I'm going to turn it up a little bit so I can get a little bit of a boil on this before I allow my pasta to go in. It smells so good. I can't wait to taste it. And you can see the broth isn't super thick, but it's not super thin either. You could thicken it up with some Wonder Flour or a slurry if you wanted. I'm gonna leave it the way it is until I see what the noodles do to it or the pasta do to it, because they're gonna start making their own little bit of goodness in here. So you just drop them down. Oh, yum. And they're already starting to puff up. It's like magic. I remember standing on the chair, watching, going, oh, they're getting bigger. Yeah. The magic of baking powder. Isn't that cool? And like this 1 cup of flour does this meal. This is a budget-friendly meal with a pound of meat, let's say. Chicken, beef, doesn't matter. Venison, whatever you've got. Pork, you could do this, and this will feed a family of 4, you know, in a pinch. Put some vegetables on the side or a salad if you can, or if you're just trying to feed your belly. Might feed 2 really hungry people for very little money. So this is very budget friendly. And you're not using much out of your food storage to do it. So there you go. You can always use your canned meat in this if you want it. It's already been slow cooked basically because the pressure canner does that work. So I want to get the ones that haven't met the broth in there, and we're going to let this just go ahead and finish up and continue to puff up and get beautiful. I'm going to get a picture, so hold on for that ride. All right. Ooh, I'll be back. Okay, so finally, it's been all day I've been waiting for this, and here it is. Oh, look at that. It's all done. It's going to be absolutely delicious, I can tell. I'm going to get my ladle over here and give you a look at that. Oh, doesn't that look delicious? And I have been a little bit under the weather, so I'm just going to have a bowl of this by itself and think back at how much this meant to me as a child and as a young adult, being able to have my grandmother make this for me, and being able to duplicate it. It took me a few times because I was pretty frustrated. I can't make it. And she walked me through it and got me to where I am today. And so anyway, I hope that you enjoy this. I'm going to zoom you in as I dish this up into my bowl. I want to make sure I've got a good visual for you because you don't want to miss out on this one. It's really hot though. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Look at that. You could actually kind of consider this a dumpling, if you will. In some parts of the country, I'm sure that's what it was called. Why she called it pot pie, I don't have a clue of that. I don't have an answer for that. She never did explain that, and I asked her over and over, doesn't pot pie have a pie crust? Isn't it in a pie form? And she never really gave me an answer to that. So, ooh, okay. I'm gonna try to take a delicious bite of this and a piece of the venison that is just fork tender. In fact, I'm going to show you how tender your venison and or stew meat, and that's what you would use. You would use a cheaper cut of meat. So you can see how this just falls apart. It's just really tender. It wasn't meant to be an expensive dish. Probably when I was a kid, I'm sure it was really inexpensive, and we would have this for Sunday dinner. I remember having it for Sunday dinner. So okay, I'm going in as soon as it's not nuclear lava hot. I can smell the herbs. All right, doesn't that look good? Okay. Hopefully it doesn't burn my tongue. Okay, here we go. Oh my goodness. That is so delicious. Oh my gosh. That is absolutely wonderful. I wish you were here to share a bowl. It is absolutely wonderful. It's everything that I remember, and I love this dish. And it's so simple, but yet so comforting. Yum! So I hope it inspires you to come back and check out my channel again. Maybe try some of my recipes, share them with your friends on Facebook. Truly, I hope that you share your recipes that you loved as a kid with your family and pass them on down, because if you don't pass them down, they go away. All right, guys, as always, God bless.